She was one of those pretty and charming girls born, as though fate had blundered over her, into a family of clerks. She had no marriage portion, no expectations, no means of getting known, understood, loved, and wedded by a man of wealth and distinction, and she let herself be married off to a little clerk in the Ministry of Public Instruction. She dressed plainly because she could not dress well, but she was as unhappy as if she has fallen from a higher station. Mathilde suffered endlessly, feeling herself born to enjoy every delicacy and luxury. She suffered from the poorness of her house, from its mean walls, worn chairs, and ugly curtains. All those things of which other women of her rank would not even have been aware, tormented and insulted her. The sight of the little Breton girl who came to do the work in her little house aroused heartbroken regrets and hopeless dreams in her mind. She imagined silent antechambers, heavy with oriental tapestries, lit by torches in lofty bronze sockets, with two tall footmen in knee breeches sleeping in large armchairs, overcome by the heavy warmth of the stove. She imagined vast salons hung with antique silks, exquisite pieces of furniture supporting priceless ornaments, and small, charming, perfumed rooms created just for little parties of intimate friends, men who were famous and sought after, whose homage roused every other woman's envious longings.
If only I was rich.
Aha, the good soup. What could be better?
She imagined delicate meals, gleaming silver, tapestries, peopling the walls with folk of a past age and strange birds in fairy forests. She imagined delicate food served in marvelous dishes, murmured gallantries, listened to with an indestructible smile as one trifled with the rosy flesh of trout or wings of asparagus chicken. She had no gowns, no jewels, nothing, and she loved nothing but that. She felt made for that. She had longed so eagerly to be charming, to be desired, to be wildly attractive, and sought after. She had a rich friend, an old school friend whom she refused to visit because she suffered so keenly when she returned home. Seeing her rich friend made her hate her situation even more. She would weep whole days with grief, regret, despair, and misery, until one evening.
Here's something for you.
The Minister of Education and Madame Georges Ramponneau request the honor of Monsieur and Madame Loisel's company at the Palace of the Ministry on Monday evening, January 18th. And what do you want me to do with this?
Why, my dear? I thought you'd be pleased. You never go out. And this is a great occasion. I had tremendous trouble to get it. Everyone wants one. It's very select. And very few go to the clerks. You see all the really big people there.
And what do you suppose I am to wear at such an affair?
Why? The dress you go to the theater in, it looks very well to me. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?
Nothing. Only I have no dress and therefore I can go to this party. Give your invitation to some friend of yours whose wife will be turned out better than I shall.
Look here, Mathilde. What would be the cost of a suitable dress, which you could use on other occasions as well? Something very simple.
I don't know exactly, but I think I could manage it on 400 francs.
He grew slightly pale, for this was exactly the amount he had been saving for Cannes, intending to get a little shooting next summer on the plain of Nanterre, with some friends who went lark shooting there on Sundays.
Very well. I give you 400 francs, and try and get a really nice dress with the money.
The day of the party drew near, and Madame Louisel seemed sad, uneasy, and anxious. Her dress was ready. However,
What's the matter with you? You've been very odd for the last 3 days.
I'm utterly miserable at not having any jewels, not a single stone to wear. I shall look poverty-stricken. I would almost rather not go to that party at all.
Wear natural flowers. They're very smart at this time of a year. For 10 francs, you could get 2 or 3 magnificent flowers.
No, there's nothing more humiliating than looking poor in the middle of a lot of rich women.
How stupid you are. Go and see Madame Forrester, and ask her to lend you some jewels. You know her quite well enough for that.
That's true. I never thought of it.
next day she went to see her friend and told her her trouble.
Oh well, choose, my dear.
First, she saw some bracelets, then a pearl necklace, then a Venetian cross in gold and gems, of exquisite workmanship. She tried the effect of the jewels before the mirror, hesitating, unable to make up her mind to leave them, to give them up.
Have you anything else?
Yes, look for yourself. I don't know what you would like best.
Suddenly, she discovered, in a black satin case, a superb diamond necklace. Her heart began to beat covetously. Her hands trembled as she lifted it. She fastened it round her neck, upon her high dress, and remained in ecstasy at sight of herself.
This is it! Will you lend me this? Just this alone?
Why, yes, certainly.
Oh, thank you!
You're always welcome.
The day of the ball party arrived. Madame Louisel was a success. She was the prettiest woman present, elegant, graceful, smiling, and quite above herself with happiness. All the men stared at her, inquired her name, and sought to be introduced to her. All the undersecretaries of state were eager to waltz with her. The minister noticed her too. She danced madly, ecstatically, drunk with pleasure, with no thought for anything, in the triumph of her beauty, in the glory of her success, in a cloud of happiness, made up of this universal homage and contemplation, of the desires she had aroused, of the completeness of a victory so dear to her feminine heart. She left about 4 o'clock in the morning. Since midnight, her husband had been dozing in a deserted little room, in company with 3 other men whose wives were having a good time. He threw over her shoulders the garments he had brought for them to go home in, modest everyday clothes, whose poverty clashed with the beauty of the ball dress. She was conscious of this and was anxious to hurry away, so that she should not be noticed by the other women putting on their costly furs.
Wait a bit. You'll catch cold in the open. I'm going to fetch a cab.
But she did not listen to him and rapidly descended the staircase. When they were out in the street, they could not find a cab. They began to look for one, shouting at the drivers whom they saw passing in the distance. They walked down towards the sea, desperate and shivering. At last, they found on the quay one of those old night prowling carriages which are only to be seen in Paris after dark, as though they were ashamed of their shabbiness in the daylight. It brought them to their door in the Rue des Martyrs, and sadly they walked up to their flat. It was the end for her. As for him, he was thinking that he must be at the office at 10 in the morning. She took off the garments in which she had wrapped her shoulders, so as to see herself in all her glory before the mirror.
Oh my! Oh my!
What's the matter with you?
I have, I've lost Madame Forrester's necklace.
What? How? Impossible!
They searched in the folds of her dress, in the folds of the coat, in the pockets, everywhere. They cannot find it.
Are you sure that you still had it on when you came away from the ball?
Yes, I touched it in the hall at the ministry.
But if you had lost it in the street, we should have heard it fall.
Yes, probably we should. Did you take the number of the cab?
No, you didn't notice it, did you?
No.
They stared at one another, thunderstruck. At last, Louisel put on his clothes again.
I'll go over all the ground we walked and see if I can find it.
And he went out. She remained in her evening clothes, lacking strength to get into bed, huddled on a chair without volition or power of thought. Her husband returned about 7.
I have found nothing. I went to the police station, to the newspapers, to offer a reward, to the cab companies everywhere.
She waited all day long, in the same state of bewilderment at this fearful catastrophe. Louisel came home at night, his face lined and pale. He had discovered nothing.
You must write to your friend and tell her that you've broken the clasp of her necklace and we are getting it mended. That will give us time to turn around.
She wrote at his dictation. By the end of a week, they had lost all hope.
We must consider replacing that necklace.
Next day, they took the box which had held the necklace and went to the jeweler's whose name was inside. He consulted his books.
It was not I, madame, who sold that necklace. I must simply have furnished the case.
Then they went from jeweler to jeweler, searching for another necklace like the first, consulting their memories, both ill with remorse and anguish of mind. At last, in a shop at the Palais Royal, they found a string of diamonds which seemed to them exactly like the one they were looking for. It was worth 40,000 francs. They were allowed to have it for 36,000. They begged the jeweler not to sell it for 3 days, and they arranged matters on the understanding that it would be taken back for 34,000 francs if the first one were found before the end of February. Louisel possessed 18,000 francs left to him by his father. He intended to borrow the rest. He did borrow it, getting 1,000 from one man, 500 from another, 5 louis here, 3 louis there. He gave notes of hand, entered into ruinous agreements, did business with usurers and the whole tribe of money lenders. He mortgaged the whole remaining years of his existence, risked his signature without even knowing if he could honor it, and appalled at the agonizing face of the future, at the black misery about to fall upon him, at the prospect of every possible physical privation and moral torture. He went to get the new necklace and put down upon the jeweler's counter 36,000 francs. Then Madame Louisel took back the necklace to Madame Forrester.
You ought to have brought it back sooner. I might have needed it.
She did not, as her friend had feared, open the case. If she had noticed the substitution, what would she have thought? What would she have said? Would she not have taken her for a thief? Madame Louisel knew the horrible existence of the needy. From the very first, she played her part heroically. This fearful debt must be paid off. She would pay it. The servant was dismissed. They changed their flat. They took a garret under the roof.
I need to sacrifice a lot just to pay all these debts.
She came to know the heavy work of the house, the hateful duties of the kitchen. She washed the plates, wearing out her pink nails on the collar's pottery and the bottom of pans. She washed the dirty linen, the shirts and dishcloths, and hung them out to dry on a string. Every morning she took the dustbin down into the street and carried up the water, stopping on each landing to get her breath. And, clad like a poor woman, she went to the fruit room, to the grocer, to the butcher, a basket on her arm, haggling, insulted, fighting for every wretched halfpenny of her money. Every month, notes had to be paid off, others renewed, time gained. Her husband worked in the evenings at putting straight a merchant's account, and often at night he did copying at 2 pence halfpenny a page. And this life lasted 10 years. At the end of 10 years, everything was paid off. Everything. The users, charges, and the accumulation of superimposed interest.
At last, it's all done.
Madame Louisel looked old now. She had become like all the other strong, hugged, coerced women of poor households. Her hair was badly done. Her skirts were awry. Her hands were red. She spoke in a shrill voice, and the water slopped all over the floor when she scrubbed it. But sometimes, when her husband was at the office, she sat down by the window and thought of that evening long ago, of the ball at which she had been so beautiful and so much admired.
Good morning, Jean.
The other did not recognize her, and was surprised at being addressed by a poor woman.
But, Madame, I don't know you. You must be making a mistake.
No, I am Mathilde Louisel.
Oh, my poor Mathilde, how you have changed.
Yes, I've had a pretty hard life since I last saw you, and great poverty. That's all because of you.
Of me? How so?
You remember the diamond necklace you lent me for the ball at the ministry?
Yes, well,
Well, I lost it.
how could you? You brought it back.
I bought you another one just like it, and for the last 10 years we have been paying for it. You realize it wasn't easy for us. We had no money. Well, it's paid for at last, and I'm glad indeed.
You say you bought a diamond necklace to replace mine?
Yes, you hadn't noticed it? They were very much alike.
Oh, my poor Mathilde. But my necklace was an imitation. It was worth at the very most 500 francs.